Hey there guys, got a video here for you today on barrel clamps. So what we're going to be doing in this one is testing a couple and seeing if they have any effect whatsoever on accuracy. The rifle that we're going to be using for the testing in this video is my Daystate alphawolf, and I will also be doing an adjacent test on the BRK Ghost, as the barrel clamps themselves are very similar, so it makes sense to group the guns together. The barrel clamp on both the BRK and the Daystate look very similar, and they both replace the side Picatinny mount, which is this part here. The clamp itself is made up of two pieces, first the mount and then the clamp itself. This fits on from beneath and clamps the barrel to the top rail. The 4 clamp screws can be tightened from the top of the rifle, so as you can see there we have 2 on this side, 2 on that side, and we can get those tightened up by using a 3mm Allen key. For the FAC and the high power rifles, there is also another piece which allows you to tension the barrel. However, for the sub 12 pound rifles, the barrel itself is a little too short to use this. So in this test, the barrels will be clamped, but they will not be tensioned. What I want to do in this video is change the clamp pressure to see if we get any change in group size. We can do that by incrementally tightening the 4 screws one by one on the top of the mount, then noting the average group size over a few different groups. We're going to be tightening the screws about 1/8 of a turn at the time, so 1/8 of a turn on this side on these 2 screws, 1/8 of a turn on this side of those 2 screws, and then seeing what happens with the group size. So let's not waste any more time, we'll get downrange and we'll start some groups. Right then, this first set of groups was our control set. These 8 groups here were done with the clamp fully loose and not touching the barrel. As always, we're set up in Pete's airgun farm in the 50-yard range with our target set out on the back wall. We're doing 8 5-shot groups using unweighed, unsalted pellets through a magazine. All testing was done using the same tin of JSB Exact 8.44 grain pellets, and I'm not going to bore you by showing all the groups. I do, however, want to mention the test procedure just in case you're curious. So first of all, the barrel was cleaned, then leaded up again using around 200 pellets from the same batch and die as our test pellets. Then a brand new tin of pellets was opened and used for the testing to keep everything nice and fair. After each set of groups, the rifle was then topped back up with air to around 180 bar, and this ruled out any pressure related sweet spot. I ran the tests a few times just to make sure the results were consistent, and I wanted real world test data, so I'm just shooting the rifle casually and using a magazine. I wanted to set a pace that I could continue all day so that the results were not affected by fatigue, and in total the testing took around 6 hours for each rifle, with the testing being done on alternating weeks. If you're still watching this, you deserve a medal, because there's no easy way to make this interesting, but hopefully some of you will get something out of it. On to test number 2, so these groups here. These sets of groups were done with the barrel clamp just about touching the barrel, just enough to affect point of impact. This is our starting point, and the screws will be tightened from here. The group size did shrink just a little bit when we first installed the clamp. However, I did notice that we did get quite a few extra flyers, and this was confirmed in further testing. It is possible that vibrations through the action were travelling through the barrel, and the barrel clamp was not tight enough to suppress these, or perhaps the barrel clamp was moving between shots. It's hard to tell really. On to test number 3, which is these sets of groups here. After the screws were done up about 1/8 of a turn nice and evenly, the point of impact jumped up around 4 inches at 50 yards, so the rifle had to be re-zeroed and then the testing could resume. At this setting, the results did get slightly worse on average, as we did get a number of flyers, so it was slightly worse than test number 2. However, it was slightly better than the standard rifle, And that was because every now and again you'd just get sort of a random flyer or a group of flyers, then the rifle would settle back down. Again, at this point it is possible that vibrations are travelling through the block into the barrel and the clamp is not done up tight enough to sort of suppress these, or as the barrel is not clamped directly up against the top rail just yet, the barrel is able to vibrate between the two pieces. With that said, on to test set number 4, and again the screws were done up about 1/8 of a turn. The point of impact did rise slightly once again, another 3 inches at 50 yards, but after the rifle was re-zeroed, the groups on average got slightly worse once again, putting the average group size in line with the standard rifle without the barrel clamp fitted. To be honest with you, the groups didn't look that bad on paper, but every now and again you just sort of see the groups opening out with a number of flyers in each group. Again, there could be any number of reasons through this. I did do extensive testing on all these settings here, and the results were fairly consistent between each of the tests. But with that said, we can move on to test number 5, which is these sets of groups just here. At this point, things started to improve. The point of impact didn't rise that much, it only rose another 1/2 inch at 50 yards, and although the rifle did need 1 or 2 groups to settle back down again, the results were promising. If we take a look here, you can see that the number of flyers is starting to get less common, and that is something that I noticed when tightening up the clamp. Further testing showed an improvement in point of impact consistency, meaning that the pellets stayed within the centre of the target, and again at this point the number of flyers did start to reduce. Moving on to test number 6, so that's these sets of groups here, and again after tightening the screws there was no change in point of impact. However, the rifle did need a few shots to settle back down again. I will say that I did make 1 or 2 mistakes in this set of groupings, with a few of the groups being spoilt by me and not the rifle. This sample set here showed no improvement over test number 5. However, when I retested it, it did show a minor improvement over test number 5. So for the testings, I chose to remove this pellet here as it was 100% my fault, and I did pull one of the shots in this group in the bottom here. I did do a few extra groups in this setting to try and make up for the poor shooting in the previous group, but overall test number 6 showed a slight improvement over test number 5. And here we have the final test data. So this was final test number 7. And again, there was no point of impact change between this set of groupings and test number 6. The other thing that I'll mention is at this point, the screws in the top are done up as tight as they can be, and the barrel is clamped firmly between the clamp itself and the top rail, so there's no movement whatsoever in the clamp or the barrel. These sets of groups here were quite surprising, as the number of flyers decreased noticeably, and the setting itself was the best of the day, producing the tightest groups. Further testing confirmed the lack of flyers, and over another 25 shot groups, there was only 3 noticeable flyers, which could well have been pellet related rather than rifle related. At this point here, the barrel is firmly clamped tight against the top block, and it seems to be performing really quite well here. I did note that after tightening the screws, the rifle needed a few groups to settle back in, but after the settling in period, the rifle was incredibly accurate. Right then, with that all said and done, I hope that wasn't too boring. The last thing I want to show you is just a little graph that I made showing the average group size and how it changed with the tightness of the clamp. The Daystate alphawolf much preferred the clamp to be done up nice and tight, however this was not the case with the BRK Ghost, and if we plot the results on the same graph, you can see that the Ghost preferred a lot less pressure than the Daystate, and with the barrel clamp done up tight, it actually made the rifle worse. I'm guessing that all rifles are going to be very slightly different, and to find the best setting for your rifle, you will have to experiment and test. but I will say on both rifles the barrel clamp had a positive effect on group size when adjusted properly. Although, as always, I can only test the rifles that I have in my hands, and there's no guarantee that the clamp will benefit every single rifle. With that all said and done though, that's pretty much going to do it for this particular video. So thank you very much for watching. I hope it's been interesting or useful. We'll see you in the next one.